So basically, I'm making this video to talk about highguard. I have over 20 hours in this game, doom queuing it almost every night. Even when I'm not streaming, I'm doom queuing this, crashing out other games, coming to this game, and yelling at my monitor. Now, it's very important to realize that yeah, it just dropped. You know, the game just came out. There's some leveling that they need to balance out that they couldn't have taken into account with pre-testing and how people play the game when it's actually released. But getting a feel for the game, I like it. I hate to say it, but I do like the game. It's getting a lot of negative reviews because it has a lot going on. Like they have the components of the siege components, the looting components, and the gunplay. And out of all these components, lots of people are hating on most of it except for the gunplay. The gunplay is good. Like how it feels is nice. If you're familiar with Apex Legends, then you'll be very familiar with how the gameplay works, or the gunplay, sorry, how the gunplay works in this game. It's very fun to play, but there's some components in the game that definitely need to be addressed. First of all, a lot of people are complaining about 3v3s. With my experience playing and all the hours that I've put into this game, I've started to think about how it would work with more players in it. And I started thinking about this before they added the 5v5 experimental mode. And that, yeah, it'd be fun to have more people in your team, get a bigger squad of your friends, whatever. But when you really think about it, and I kind of found this when I was trying out the 5v5 game mode, is that there's too many on the other team. There's so many situations in this type of game mode where you need to go loot by yourself. You need to like separate from your team to go loot because first of all, there's only such limited loot in between rounds in the chests that spawn that you need to separate. And so you can get caught into a 1v5 fucking situation in 5v5s, whereas in 3v3 the max is a 1v3, which is more doable, and you can play around those big obstacles that exist in the map, especially how they have the mounts that you can ride away in. So I don't think 5v5 is the solution. I really think 3v3 for this type of game makes more sense. And whenever I bring this up with other people that have also tried out the game, they suggest, oh, maybe 4v4. That could be something they could trial out, but imagine you're in a 1v4 situation. Are you going to be able to have two on one side, two on one side? Like, let's say you're on a corner and two of them come one side, two of them come the other side. There's no easy option there, right? Whereas it's you're a 1v3 kind of situation, you go for the side that only has one, you can take them out, move around that way, right? So with more people, I don't think it's going to make a better experience. Another reason for that is the loot situation, which I mentioned previously, was that there's such limited loot in highguard. When you spawn in for your round, you have to separate from your team so that you can actually find your own chest to get better guns, better shields, and all that other equipment, right? And mine some crystals. If there's 5 dudes on your team, how much loot is there really for everyone? You're going to be stuck into the next fight with gray armor, gray loot, and you're going to get absolutely pissed on. So I don't think 5v5 again is the play for this game. Another reason why I'm shitting on 5v5 is the fact that it takes in that breaching component similar to R6, right? But it's also different from R6, where it's less tactical. It's more movement and sieging different areas, using your util, right? I don't have much experience on R6, but the gameplay is vastly different. There's much more movement in highguard, you know? You can run faster, jump around, crouch. If you're using certain characters, you can phase through walls. Like, there's so many different components that are different. And so, when there's a 5v5, there's 5 dudes in one room. You can't really retake a bomb site by yourself. Yeah, it's a team game, and you gotta rely on your teammates. But say you're attacking, and all the lives are lost on your team, because that's what happens in this game. All the lives are lost in your team. You need to be able to, you know, pick out a good site to be able to plant on and stop a retake. But if you're getting pressured by 5 whole dudes coming into your room all at one time, what are you gonna do? Like, really, what are you gonna do? There's less viable options for a clutch scenario, and so the skill that you can take from the 3v3s doesn't really apply. The next thing I want to talk about in high guard is, if we're sticking with 3v3s or 5v5s, regardless, is the shop. The shop is kind of pissed. The guns that you need to buy, because let's be honest, we all use the same guns if round to round. If you're using a sniper, sure, whatever. But like, sometimes I open the shop and it's filled with a sniper, a freaking deagle, and the burst SMG, and I'm like, what the hell? What am I gonna buy? Fucking wank in the corner and call it a day, because I'm not gonna be able to play properly. Because this also feeds into the situation with the loot, how it's completely RNG which assault rifles or SMG shotguns that you find within this chest. Like, you could open 5 different red chests and only find SMGs, and you're just stuck with a gray AR for 2 rounds. And then you look at the shop, you're like, okay, it's fine that I can find piss loot in these boxes. I'll just check the shop, grab something that works for me. You open it up, it's a fucking sniper, a deagle, and a burst AR, and you're just, alright, going in with a gray Vanguard. There needs to be some kind of way to offer more options within the shop so people can pick the guns that they actually know how to use, that are actual functional within the game, and not be forced to pick up purple burst AR because they're stuck with a gray Vanguard or something like that. Now, I don't know the specifics around adjusting the shop to fit that, but it's definitely something that needs to be reevaluated. The controller support. The controller fucking support, bro. It is bare bones. First of all, I have a damn PlayStation controller plugged into my PC, okay? And I gotta do all the swaps in my head to figure out button to button. I use a pro controller, so I got paddles, so things are extra difficult. And you can only select through profiles. Lots of games, maybe they don't immediately have assigning buttons to different movements. I know one game that came out in the last year that did have that was Battlefield 6. When they dropped the red sec, that was really awesome, how you could adjust everything. And the using controller in that game was great because, I don't know, I fucked in that game. It was awesome. I think controller support is definitely needed for a game like this, especially how similar the gunplay is to Apex Legends, and there's lots of controller plays in that game. There's lots of pros that use controllers that are used to the movement, the aiming, the gunplay, and all of that with controller, especially since most of the people that are playing this game, I don't know this for sure, but a lot of people use a controller coming from consoles. It's on Xbox, it's on PlayStation, and so having that care to put in good controller support is super vital for these types of games. Another thing with controller support is the sensitivity. Games, you should be able to manually adjust the look sensitivity, your turn rate, and your ADS. An example, a game I play way too much is Fortnite. The controller support in that is great. Of course, that game has been out for ages and they've had time to work on it and add features. Yes, but that shouldn't take away from the ability of these developers to address those things. They know what works from other games. They can study and look at games that have come out, have successful controller support, and simply just add it. It seems like they didn't have that kind of care when taking into account the types of people that will be playing this game, not just a 1 to 10 scale. You should have those advanced settings, similar to what Apex Legends has. These are the same developers. They have that experience with Apex Legends. They should be able to look at that, look what works, apply that to this. Now, I am shitting all over this game, but it's because I want it to work. I want this game to be successful. I think it's so different from what is currently available, and it's free, so lots of people can try it out. Their first impressions of the game are the most important. That's what's going to keep them coming back and playing the game continuously, so that the player base doesn't die immediately. And so when they dropped this game that had full of issues, terrible controller support, it kind of felt like the game wasn't play tested. It wasn't given out to people that seriously play games on different modes. So the PC support is great. It's great for keyboard and mouse. The movement feels nice. The gunplay is great, but all those other features, like for controller, is it doesn't seem like it was actually tested. And what I'm worried about with this game is how it's being taken. So all these people are complaining about, oh, it's 3v3s for such a big map. I think it's a big map so people can loot and get the guns that they actually need to be able to perform and actually be able to get into these fighting scenarios, right? And then there's fightings for those objectives, around those objectives. Being able to bring the Stormbringer here and there and not being stuck with gray piss guns, gray armor, etc. But what they did in response to this was add the 5v5 instead of looking into those other things that might make the gameplay and the fighting and just the whole experience around 3v3 is just better. They immediately went for, oh, people are complaining about not enough people, so they just threw in a 5v5 option without taking into account maybe that that would bring its own set of problems. That there's too hectic, it's too chaotic. It's not built for a 5v5. I guess just to really wrap up is I do like this game. Even though I be playing it and I be yelling at my computer and my monitor saying, oh, I hate this game, I keep coming back to play it because it's just so different. And it's so different from what's currently out there. And the gunplay feels great. I love how there's different aspects that they've kind of taken from other games, like the mounts coming from like Paladin, being able to get different places faster, which helps with the big maps. You know, the maps are so big. Well, get on the damn horse, get to where you need to go. I do like this game, and I want it to succeed. So what the devs need to do is really address those quality of life features that are so vital to the game to make the 3v3 experience more playable for everyone. So the controller, looking at the shop and making it more usable and to get what you actually need, because you're farming those crystals, you want to be able to spend them on guns that you actually want instead of being stuck with some lame ass gray version of the AR or shotgun that you want to be using. I think they really need to stick with the 3v3 instead of listening to all the people that are already hating on the game. They're not going to give it a second chance, and they're saying that they want those 5v5 game modes. I know I'm a very small channel, and these could just be me ranting about this game, but I grew up playing Apex Legends. I loved that game, and I loved how the fights felt in it, and I was really excited about this game coming out, and I want it to succeed. I want it to grow. I don't want the fan base dying, especially since I live in New Zealand where all of these games have such short lives. I haven't been able to get a game in Apex in like 3-4 years, okay? So I don't want this game to die. I want it to succeed. I want it to continue to develop and grow. So I really make this video out of hope that someone sees this and looks at the things that I'm mentioning and addresses them, or looks into these problems that I'm discussing, so that the game can improve for everyone that touches the game and their first impressions of the game, instead of the developers making those changes just to make a small portion of the fan base happy for a small period of time. You know, they might focus on these things that people are yelling out now, but isn't going to improve the game long term. Let me know what you guys think of the game, what you would fix in the game, if you like the game. I don't know. Just say something. Appreciate y'all.